Good afternoon. My name is Larry Ray. I'm the President and CEO of Gold Ray Resources Corp., a company that trades on the TSX Venture Exchange and has the majority of its operations in China. We are currently developing a resource there with limited production at this time. Our goal is to increase this production up to about 1,200 to 1,500 tons per day. And to do that, we are negotiating with several Chinese companies, one of which will become our partner either directly into the company or into the project, which will allow us to move the project up to the desired tonnage. For further information, please visit our website at goldray.com or phone 604-531-9639.
Welcome back to the Money and Wealth Show. I'm Sterling Fox in conversation this week with veteran British Columbia journalist and reporter Harvey Oberfeld. And Harvey, we were talking about the HST and how none of us like taxes of any description, but you've won awards in your storied career dealing with follow-ups on all of those tax dollars we pay, however reluctantly. Basically, where the money goes. And if there's one thing that unites Canadians in every corner of the country, it's a feeling that government wastes more than they spend well on an annual basis.
Well, a lot of people don't like what the government spends unless they're after some of those bucks, and then whatever program they happen to be interested in, it's okay to spend it on that.
Right.
The first Webster Award I won was I dealt with waste management. They were up for a regional contract here for recycling in British Columbia. That was back about '92. And you know, recycling was something new, regional recycling. And they had a pretty well almost a signed contract with the GVRD for $28 million, if I recall correctly, for the first phase. I didn't like the way the government, the GVRD was, it seemed to me the way the process was going, it was like they were already deciding to go ahead. So we did some investigation of waste management and the references they used, and it turned out that, much to my surprise even, that some of the references they used they said were city officials in various communities in the United States were actually their employees in the United States working in those cities that had contracts. So they weren't quite as they were stating their references were. And they had lots of environmental fines for, doing things improperly in the States, millions and millions and millions of dollars at one place where we actually went down to California and visited that plant. So it seemed to me that there was a big rush towards spending taxpayer money without really knowing what is it we're getting into here. And after we did our series of news stories, the GVRD backed away from the waste management contract and eventually went to the system we now have, where we do have recycling, but you'll notice it's on more of a municipal basis rather than a regional. Now, I don't know whether that's still the best way to do it, but certainly at the time, the way the taxpayers' money was being spent was, in our view, it wasn't being done with 100% clear vision of what was involved here. So that was one of the stories I did, one of the series.
Let me come at you with from a slightly different angle. In the United States, year after year, the biggest single advertising spender is Procter & Gamble. In Canada, year after year, the biggest single advertising spender is the Government of Canada. Governments at all levels in Canada spend hideous amounts of taxpayer dollars on the media. As a result of this spending and the ability of government to influence media by cutting them off, have you ever been in a situation where a boss, an editor said, Harvey, we'd really appreciate it if you didn't go there. I mean, we could use the government revenue. There's an election coming up and they're going to spend a fortune on us.
You know, I've never had that happen. In fact, the very first issue that I got involved with when I joined BCTV at the legislature in Victoria was the Dirty Trick scandal. And by the time we were finished, I think about 8 people in government lost their jobs over some gerrymandering of election boundaries and phony letters to the editor. So no, the company stuck with us, the management stuck with us and said, you just better be right. That was the only admonition I remember. These days, I'm not so sure that maybe wouldn't happen, but you know, the reporter wouldn't know. The decision on that kind of a basis would be made upstairs and it would be transferred down to middle management. But I don't think it happens as often as people might think, because the government needs the media as much as the media needs the government. When there's an election coming, the government wants to get its message out. The government wants to get its advertising out, its propaganda, paid for often by the taxpayer.
Absolutely.
You know that period that happens before an election, you can tell an election is coming by all those progress reports and those fancy pamphlets that come in the paper. So they need each other. And so if you're a smaller media member, you could be under pressure because, you know, the government didn't like those editorials you were doing that were pro-NDP perhaps.
Right.
So maybe you're not going to get as much government advertising you're spending. But I got to tell you, when an election comes, the government and the opposition parties, even if they hate you, they want that exposure that you can offer, and that's what really determines what they spend.
A lot of cutbacks in the media since the heyday when you and I were enjoying large staff environments, Harv. And part of that, I think, has caused a reduction in the media's ability to cover government effectively and aggressively. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I think that's what's hurting the taxpayer. Because, you know, when I was there, when we had our heyday at BCTV, we really went after the government and we looked at where they were spending, and we'd walk into offices and corporate offices and say, what's going on here, with the camera rolling. I walked into the parliamentary dining room with my camera, said, I just want to show people what goes on here. Well, I wasn't in there very long, and I was out. I walked into the parliamentary barber shop where MPs got a haircut for $1.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. So those are the kinds of things. But the media, because of do more with less, they're not doing that anymore. There's just not enough resources, and I think there's not enough attitude. I think you need attitude. So as a result of that, the taxpayers, I think, are not being served very well, because we're getting flash news on whatever happened today, you know, some accident, some fire, but we're not getting enough in-depth look at where your taxpayers' dollars are being spent and wasted.
Very quickly, 60 seconds or less. You're a Montreal guy. The government is considering a bill that would require members of the Supreme Court of Canada to be completely bilingual, thereby effectively reducing the opportunity for a lot of Western Canadians to ever make it to the High Court. What do you think of that?
Sterling, I warned about that last July. In 2009, I heard about that bill coming forward. I warned about it a year ago, and I said it was a disaster then, and I wrote about it on my blog recently. It's a disaster now, and I think that I'm amazed that the media isn't making more of that, because that is ripping off Western Canadians and making them second-class citizens by requiring full functional bilingualism at that level.
Our guest is Harvey Oberfeld. He's keeping it real at harveyoberfeld.ca. Great to have you on board. A pleasure to sit down and have a chat with you and talk about some of the issues that are of concern to a lot of our viewers here on the Money and Wealth Show. Thanks again, Harvey.
You're welcome, sir.
And we'll be right back.